Warren.
Here.
Natalie Wolf.
Here.
Scott Lahrmer. Andrew Kiki. Chief Wallace. Rick Kay.
And if everyone could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Just as a reminder to all council members and staff, etc., since this is the first meeting where we're back in mask, it's very important that we speak clearly and a little louder than we do normally, and make sure your microphone is on and speak into the mic. Thank you. First item on the agenda is our minutes from our last regularly scheduled meeting. Those minutes were circulated in advance to all council members. Are there any comments with respect to those minutes? Seeing none, we can consider the minutes approved. Next item is our finance report for June of this year.
Thank you, Mayor. Included in your packet is the UAN report, which gives you a summary of the finances for the month of June 2021. I've also prepared a memo that talks a little bit about the general fund and its effect throughout June of 2021. So the earnings tax collections for the month of June, $220,000. That brings us to a year-to-date amount of a little over $2 million, which represents about 67% of what we have estimated to collect this year. Our estimate is $3 million, so we're sitting at a little over $2 million at this point. The village did receive money, about $7,800 through the local government fund. That's a fund that we get about $55,000 a year through the state of Ohio. Our total revenue for the month of June was $350,000. And that represents, brings us a year-to-date collection of 3.4, which is about 65% of what we had estimated to collect this year of the $5.1 million. On the expense side of the equation, our expenses for the month of June, $351,000. Year-to-date expenses through the end of June, $2.7 million. So we have expended about 46% of the budget. The budget that you approved in December of 2020 was a $5.7 million budget, so we've spent 46% of that as of the end of June. We ended the month of June with an unencumbered general fund balance of $6.1 million. And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for the man? Okay, thank you. We do have one citizen to address council, but he is not here this evening so far. If he comes later, we'll try to fit it in the agenda. So we'll move on to committee reports, and the first item is the Planning Commission report.
This is the second reading of Ordinance 2021-9, amending Section 154.66 of the Amberley Village Code. While developing the Amberley Green District zoning text, questions are raised as to the process for approving temporary events such as the one-stop recycle event, farmers markets, and food truck rallies. Staff stated that Code Section 154.66 calls for all temporary events not mentioned is permitted in all districts to be approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. During these discussions, staff suggested that this section of the code be reviewed to streamline approvals on events with short time frames and to assure compliance. As some temporary events are held without a permit due to the short duration of the event and not realizing a permit is required, or because of the length of the permitting process. The Village Council has the ability to amend the zoning map or the regulations in the zoning code. However, the code states that such amendments must first be submitted to the Planning Commission for review, recommendation, and suggestions. Proposed amendments to Code Section 154.66 were submitted to the Planning Commission at the regular meeting on May 3rd. The amendments submitted to the Planning Commission proposed to allow temporary events of less than 7 days to be approved by the village manager, while temporary events of more than seven days still be required to be submitted to the BZA. It was discussed during the May 3rd meeting that there may be cases where the village manager may recommend an event be heard by the BZA even though it is for less than 7 days. It was also discussed that any structure used for a temporary event would be required to meet the code requirements in section 154.12 regarding accessory structure and a religious structure such as sukkahs would be excluded from these permit requirements. The Planning Commission recommended rewording the proposal language to clarify the intent of the amendment, which would allow the BZA to permit temporary events of up to 12 months and the village manager to permit temporary events of up to 7 days. This language would clarify that events of 7 days or less in duration may be heard by the BZA.
Okay, I think what we're going to do is we're first going to open the public hearing, and then we'll take comments from council members. Is that okay? Okay. Given the change of our zoning ordinance, it is appropriate that we hold a public hearing. I would hereby like to open the public hearing. It is now 6:36, and we're opening the public hearing. Are there any residents that would like to address the council with respect to this order? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 6:36 also. So I will take questions.
Thank you. It just occurred to me, I probably would never have occurred to me, and I know it didn't occur to me back in May, but when we had all of the letters and emails and stuff sent to us with regard to Amberley Green and the dogs, one of the things we received was basically somebody's wedding album, from a wedding that took place at Amberley Green. And instead of my reaction being, oh, this person really loves to walk her dog at Amberley Green, my reaction was, people are having weddings at Amberley Green and we're not issuing a permit? So I am hoping, and Scott, maybe you can answer, or Tom, but I hope that going forward, with the ease now with which the village manager should be able to grant a permit for these one-off events that are of short duration, that we will be encouraging residents and non-residents alike somehow to come to the manager and ask for a permit before they host their wedding at Amberley Green and surprise us all with a packet full of photographs. That is my comment.
Well, Vice Mayor Wolf, that subject did come up during our discussions because some of the activities that occur, there is a provision in our code for residents to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, but that's more of a lengthy process, and so that was part of what drove this particular recommendation to the council, was to initiate a process so that something could be approved with a quick turnaround time. I'll give you an example. Right now we have the provision of approving somebody to have a garage sale. It doesn't come to you, it doesn't come to the Zoning Board of Appeals, it's an administrative matter. But there are other purposes throughout the village, and including in Amberley Green, where somebody wants to do something, and this would enable them to do that. Once council adopts this, assuming you adopt this, then staff will put together the format and the proper process for this, and then it'll be available for residents to do such activities.
Well, can I just ask a follow-up, and that is, do people call Village Hall and ask if there is a process by which they can have their wedding at Amberley Green, or do they just, tell everybody but the village, the guests, the wedding party, the photographer, come to Amberley Green for our low-cost, free venue wedding?
I don't believe that I have been asked to have a wedding at Amberley Green, but I have been asked to do a lot of different things at Amberley Green. So we get all kinds of requests, but a wedding has not been on the list that I know.
And I hope that we will find a way, I hope there is a process, there's a way to let people know that if they want to do this, that they should call the village.
Well, but part of the difficulty with that is there are not facilities at Amberley Green, so that really restricts what some folks want to do. So the photos that you received, I think, was probably a small venue and probably in quick duration, I would guess.
I think we might add this to a mention to our signage list for the public buildings and parks discussion, like a little bullet point.
Kelly, generally, the rule is we do not take questions from the floor. I mean, that's the purpose of having the resident address council. So please feel free, after the meeting, if you have a question, to grab any of the council members or whatever. Thank you. Ray, did you have something?
Yeah, I just had a question. In reference to Natalie's comments about that photo shoot. So, my understanding is that it wasn't really, and I don't mean to get into the details here, but the photos that we're referring to, it's not really clear to me whether there was a wedding there or there were just some reception photos taken there. And so I'm going to assume that if a wedding party wishes to go to the green just to have a set of photos taken, they don't need to contact you, that is the village manager, or BZA to do that. I mean, they just go there and do it. Or is that? Okay, let's for argument's sake, let's say someone just wants to do a photo shoot there. Is there an issue with that? I don't think so, is it?
If I can just address that particular comment, a lot of the responses that I give in folks that inquire about what they can do specifically at Amberley Green is it's a public property. So we don't reserve it. There aren't restroom facilities there, so a lot of activities can occur at Amberley Green that we're not privy to. So that does happen frequently, I'm sure.
Yes, thank you. So a couple things. First of all, I just want to thank council for this. This issue specific to Amberley Green was certainly something that to me was a bit of a hang-up when we were going through our zoning piece. And part of the reason I think that things are allowed now is because the zoning, while we have the overlay zoning, it's still what it is and things are allowed. This is really going to provide the opportunity, though, a really great opportunity for us to do things, even our one-stop drop, which we technically are, in a little bit of a gray area in terms of how we're even permitting our own events. This will allow us to really, this is just for edification here, to do things, to have one-off opportunities without having to go to the BZA, without violating our own zoning potentially, and really streamline this process. To the wedding issue, though, just for clarity's sake, this is not an ordinance that is about the Amberley Green uniquely. This is a village-wide ordinance, so there are people who may also find that they also require permits for backyard weddings that they have not been permitting and things like that. So there are, I just wanted to clarify that though we are all talking a lot about the green, and it certainly to me is a huge reason why I will support this. I really am, this is just something that, it's really great that we're doing this, we're closing our own loopholes, and I think we're making life a lot easier for residents and for ourselves to move forward and not get into some pretzels around opportunities to do events at the green, which is great. So I wanted to just thank the administration for the movement on this, and council and committees that we've moved this pretty quickly, and it's great, so fully support this.
Make a motion to waive the third reading of ordinance 2021-9, amending section 154.66 of the Amberley Village Code.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we waive the third reading on ordinance 2021-9. Are there any questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we waive the third reading on ordinance 2021-9. Please call the roll.
Richard Bardach.
Yes.
Peg Conway.
Yes.
Ben Hunt.
Yes.
Elida Kamine.
Yes.
Tom Muething.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-9, amending section 154.66 of the Amberley Village Code.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2021-9, adopting amendments to the section 154.66 of the village code. Are there any questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2021-9. Please call the roll.
Richard Bardach.
Yes.
Peg Conway.
Yes.
Ben Hunt,
Yes.
Elida Kamine,
Yes.
Tom Muething,
Yes.
Ray Warren,
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. And, well, now, a little bit out of order, but Mr. Driscoll, you're welcome to address council.
Sorry, I was a couple minutes late. Colin Driscoll, 6600 Bridge Road. I'd like to voice a concern about Ordinance 2021-8 passed by Council July 12th, set to go into effect. I've attended several meetings, made comments, offered ideas, and listened to the discussion. Council members offered thoughts such as reset, being cordial to others, leashing your dog when approached, finding common ground, and being disrespectful. I'm concerned the provision in the ordinance for the 30-day imprisonment to be at odds with most council member comments on the issue. I raised these concerns with both the Parks Committee and at a council meeting. Just recently, the village manager wrote a memo dated June 29th as he would be on vacation during the council session. He stated, among the various iterations of what the regulations could be to Amberley Green, what I've heard from the majority of council members does include support for two approaches. He went on to mention option A and option B. Both were identical with the exception of off-leash times. One of the common bullet points stated, monetary fines, restriction on usage for non-compliance, and then in quotes, no jail time. I found it a bit alarming at the last council meeting when amendments were offered that there was no amendment or discussion regarding the removal of jail time from the ordinance. The provision for incarceration elevates this to a 4th-degree misdemeanor criminal offense. I can easily envision a resident who happens to be allergic to poison ivy getting a citation for not retrieving dog poop in one of the many poison ivy patches. An internet search revealed the following about Ohio law. The impact of a misdemeanor on your life. Compared to felonies, misdemeanors may at first seem much less severe. Jail versus prison. Shorter sentence, lighter fines. However, a misdemeanor conviction can impact your life going forward, regardless of the sentence or fine. A misdemeanor conviction creates a criminal record. A criminal record, even a record of misdemeanors, will impact your life adversely. You may find it difficult to find suitable employment in the future, and your freedom might be severely restricted. I ask, how did we get here when at first we came to the table seeking common ground? I implore you to abandon this heavy-handed approach and follow the early advice outlined by the village manager in his July 29 memo, eliminating the provision for jail time. Rather than dismissing me in silence, I think village residents deserve to know each council member's rationale for the provision for incarceration contained within this ordinance.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the ordinance text, and I just want to acknowledge that it's not the first offense. It's there as a may be imprisoned for not more than 30 days. For subsequent offenses, the first offense, the fine is not less than $25 or more than $100. Now, each subsequent offense shall be fined not less than $75 or more than $250 and may be imprisoned for not more than 30 days. So I think it's not perhaps as dire as it was presented. I don't know, it did not come up in the committee meetings specifically, so I cannot offer any further comment on that. But it is, as my reading of it, it's someone who is completely uncooperative and difficult and what word am I looking for? Unrepentant, I don't know what this word, I can't think of it. It's not meant to be the first line of response of penalty.
And yeah, I just want to add that every time we pass an ordinance, and add an ordinance to our code. We don't rewrite the penalties for each level of, whatever this was classified, I don't recall, was it a misdemeanor? I don't recall, but they all match. There is consistency within the code. So when we want consistency within our code. Like all minor misdemeanors will have the same penalty. All felonies will have the same, not whatever degree they are. They're gonna match.
Yeah, I think a minor misdemeanor does not provide for potential jail time.
As I said, I don't have it in front of me, and I don't recall what we classified it as, but that's what a lot of the boring stuff we do up here is making sure, like even within the zoning code, that all the provisions match within the code, that there's not randomness.
Amy, do you have any comment?
I just don't know where the leeway lies, whether it's... My question would be, why could this not have been classified as a minor misdemeanor as opposed to a fourth degree misdemeanor? You would know it a lot better than I would. I just, as I read it, it just kind of... I guess my concern was maybe I could get cited for my dog chasing a squirrel the first time, and then 2 years later, he goes in the poison ivy, and somebody won't go in there to retrieve it, and then get cited a second time. My concern was, current administration can change over time. It could be handled in a different way in the future. It would have been more palatable to me for it to be a minor misdemeanor without the ability to amend. That's comforting.
Okay, thank you. I will now go back to the agenda and it's Streets, Public Utilities, and Sewers.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everyone hear me, by the way?
Yes.
The Streets, Public Utilities, and the Sewer Committee met on August 2nd. At that meeting, Mr. Chesney and Mr. Brown provided an update to our salt storage and needs for the upcoming winter season. We currently have under 175 tons in the salt barn. Recall the salt barn has a capacity of 1,300 tons. In typical historic winters, we use about 1,000 tons. The last 2 winters have been particularly mild, such that we didn't need to purchase salt last winter. Our current reserves are low. To save on the purchase price, the village either takes part in the Hampton County procurement program or the City of Cincinnati. Village staff determined that the best route now is with Hampton County. 3 bids were submitted to the county from Compass Minerals, Morton Salt, and Cargill, with a price range of $67.52 per ton to $85.95 per ton, the lowest being Compass Minerals. We have experience with each of these 3 suppliers. Staff recommended that we purchase 1,100 tons from Compass Minerals. Now, while the contract is a 2022 contract, we will be able to start to take delivery this calendar year. The village has budgeted $10,000 for salt purchase this calendar year. The balance of the salt purchases will be taken from the 2022 budget. So before you is resolution number 2021-25, authorizing the village manager to enter into a contract with Compass Minerals for the purchase of rock salt through the Hampton County Purchasing Program. So the committee recommended the council approve this.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2021-25, authorizing the village manager to enter into a contract with Compass Minerals. Are there any questions or comments? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2021-25. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Be noted that the resolution passes unanimously.
And that concludes the Streets Committee report. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 3 items to cover. The first being Resolution 2021-26, which is considered a housekeeping item. This is a lien that's being placed on property. This results from a lack of grass cutting. The village had to contract to have the grass mowed, and our next step is to put it on the property taxes. So you're being asked to adopt Resolution 2021-26. So a motion would be in order at this time.
I move that we adopt Resolution 2021-26, requesting the Hamilton County Auditor to place a lien against property.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2021-26, authorizing the village manager to request the county auditor to place a lien against the property for nuisance abatement expense. Are there any questions or comments? Not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2021-26. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Be it noted the resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you. The next item under the manager's report is Resolution 20-21-27. This is accepting the terms of a national opioid settlement agreement through the state of Ohio. So this issue came up rather quickly. I was in a meeting just a few weeks ago and they announced that there would be action necessary for communities to get on board with this settlement. So you're aware that the opioid issue has been nationwide. We certainly have seen it in this area. In fact, one of our employees, Tom Fallon, is the investigative commander of the heroin task force. His salary is paid by Hamilton County, but he works from Amberley Village and does quite a bit of work as it relates to addressing this opioid issue. But part of what's occurring here is that a settlement has been reached through the Ohio Attorney General's office with the opioid manufacturers. So this would be the pharmaceutical companies. They have been identified. They have reached a settlement agreement between them and the state of Ohio, in which we are a party to. We are a party to it because back in the fall, the village determined that we would be receptive to an agreement as a sort of like a class action type of agreement. So what's before you this evening is Resolution 2021-27, which accepts the terms of the agreement. It's being referred to as the One Ohio Subdivision Settlement, but it is truly for the opioid settlement. If council does approve this, there's a certain number of communities throughout the state of Ohio that are required to approve it in order for it to become a legitimate settlement agreement. The money that would be received from the settlement would be paid to the different communities. It is intended to be used for some type of opioid treatment. That is yet to be defined in terms of the settlement. We're not talking a huge amount of money for Amberley Village because our population is smaller, but it would be appropriate for council at this point to go ahead and adopt this ordinance because staff believes that the settlement is the best course of action to resolve this issue. I would point out that I would ask you to amend the resolution because it did get prepared with an emergency clause. We do not need an emergency clause on a resolution. So before you, on your dais tonight, is a resolution that's been amended that strikes out that emergency clause. And so I just ask that when you approve this, to include that particular amendment to strike the emergency clause. So a motion would be in order for council to accept this.
I move that council approve Resolution 2021-27 as amended. Is the resolution to accept the terms of the One Ohio Opioid Settlement, not as an emergency.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2021-27, the amended version, not the version that was sent in the advanced materials. Are there any questions or comments?
Scott, on the settlement, are we obligated to set aside these funds for items associated with opioid treatment or education?
Yeah, the determination of how those funds can be expended has not been spelled out to the communities yet. There may have been, I'm sure there's already been discussion about it, but it hasn't been shared with the communities. Because this is a settlement, some of those details have not been released. But I would anticipate that it would be for that intended purpose. And obviously, since having Lieutenant Fallon on staff here, he'll be able to assist us in this matter as well.
So could those funds be applied toward his compensation?
That is a possibility, although we do not pay for his compensation because that all comes from Hamilton County. When I've consulted with him on this, he encourages us to adopt this, and I think that discussion will happen later as to when these monies do arrive, how can it be utilized to its best value.
I guess my third question is, my understanding is there are some states that are not party to the settlement, and so there may be some continuing litigation. Will that interfere with this settlement?
That depends on how many communities actually engage in this. So the intent is to get at least 70% of the communities in Ohio to get behind this movement so that there is a true settlement. Because if the pharmaceutical companies and the state of Ohio sees that we're all in agreement, they're willing to deal with everybody and take care of this matter. There certainly will going to be some communities that might strike out on their own and pursue it on their own litigation. And certainly some states may choose that as well. But I think what you saw in the information we've gotten from the Ohio Municipal League is that Ohio is sort of ahead of most other states in terms of working out this agreement. I don't know if you recall 20 plus years ago there was a similar situation with tobacco. There was a huge tobacco settlement, and that did not come down to the local level like this is. So this is a bit unique.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2021-27. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Be noted that the resolution passes.
Thank you. My third item is the Village Manager's Report. I have 3 items I want to talk about out of the Manager's Report. The first being the proclamation that was bestowed upon the village from Hamilton County Health Department. This was primarily for the assistance that the village gave to the health department as COVID was going on. We certainly sponsored a couple of pop-up clinics, and they were very appreciative of that, so they did give you the proclamation to the village. And the second thing I want to mention is the banner that's outside promoting the ice cream social. The ice cream social is August 29th. Certainly we're all going to be there. It's going to be a drive-through. Staff has been planning this. I think they're going to have an exhilarating event that you're not going to want to miss. I just encourage all of you to attend. And the third I want to mention is there's been a lot of activity on Section Road, and so you've been impacted by the traffic on Section Road with the construction. There are two things that are going on there. The first is the street program. You approved a street program in April of $521,000, but in order to get to that point, Greater Cincinnati Waterworks had to replace some water lines on Section Road. They also had to replace some water lines on Winding Way, but they've been focused a lot on Section Road, so that has caused havoc with traffic in the village. So that is wrapping up that particular project. The next project that has caused havoc on Section Road is what's referred to as TUG, and TUG is the targeted underground, and that is the undergrounding of electric lines in the Elbrook Section Road area. This is a major project for Duke Energy. They have committed millions of dollars to take care of this, but what you're seeing along Section Road is the actual undergrounding of electric lines that is going to be a two-plus year project. So that's what is tying up some of the traffic on Section Road. But we're quite pleased that they're doing that because it's going to address the electrical outages that our residents have experienced in that area of the village. So just wanted to bring that to council's attention. If you have residents call, that is what is going on. And that concludes my manager's report.
Are there any questions for the manager? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. There's no chief's report tonight, so on the mayor's report, a couple items. The next Environmental Stewardship Committee meeting is going to be August 23rd. This is actually a meeting that previously was not scheduled, needs to be added to the community calendar, and the primary reason it's been added is that the members of the committee felt they wanted to meet one more time prior to our annual one-stop drop, just to make sure we had everything in line for that. And so that meeting is August 23rd at 7 p.m. down in the community room, and the one-stop drop will be September 26th from noon to 4. It's going to be a little different this year than in the past. There will not be any electronics recycling. The cost of having electronics recycling has become prohibitive to having the event. There is still electronics recycling available, but just not in an event like this, and you can consult our website. And also in the package that residents get when they drive through the ice cream social, there will be both a postcard talking about the one-stop drop as well as some information on other recycling opportunities elsewhere. So the one-stop drop will have the safe paper shredding, and Goodwill will be there as in the past. The other item related to the Environmental Stewardship Committee, similar to the other the things like yoga on the lawn, the Environmental Stewardship Committee has been trying to identify some events that we could have. On September 12th, there will be an event called Forest Bathing. Forest bathing is a mindfulness process of experiencing forest and wooded parks. And one of the members of the Environmental Stewardship Committee is actually a trained person that can put on these programs. And I have actually seen people, I've gone through French Park and seen people, and you literally, if you see someone in French Park and they're they're almost like they're in a trance. I mean, I probably offended the person because I said, "Are you okay?" or something, and they didn't respond. But it's a process that just it's another form of meditation or something like that. So this is something we're going to see if we can do. There will be a flyer on the website related to this. Again, there'll be 2 sessions on September 12th, one from 10 to 12 up in French Park, and the other from 12:30 to 2:30. It's limited to 10 persons each time, and that's why they're running 2 sessions. But it sounds like it could be a lot of fun.
Can I just ask you to spell that, please?
Forest bathing, just like
F-O-R-C-E-D?
Forest.
Wait, and is it bathing or like bathing?
It's a Japanese practice,
It is a
Natalie.
Japanese
Okay, just so if we want to Google it, I would need to know.
It was developed in Japan. Okay. And then the last item I have, I just want to recognize our village manager. I think, Scott, you've been with the village now kind of 10 years. You started part-time, or not part-time, but before you started permanently in October of 2011, but you actually started in June, I think. And the village, you've been instrumental in putting the village in a lot of different place, or much better place than we were in 2011. So I really want to recognize your service for the past 10 years, and the next 20 or 30 or whatever years you're going to be here, it would be great. So thank you very much. And that concludes my mayor's report. Is there any new business? If not, we can consider the meeting is adjourned. So thank you very much.